fifth session of the second day. Let me introduce myself. I'm Brigadier Professor Dr. Ahmed Saeed Minhas. I'm Pro-Vice Chancellor at DHS Sufa University, and I have my PhD from Quaid-e-Azam University in Strategic Studies and International Relations. Indeed, it's an honor and privilege for me to chair the fifth session on the topic which is very close to my heart. And the topic for fifth session is Pakistan's Poland defense and strategic relations, challenges and opportunities. Before I invite the august speakers on the stage so that they can share their thoughts, let me share that during my course of experience at the United Nations, I found the Polish officers, especially the armed forces officers, very mature, very professional, and very stout. So it's always been a treat to serve with them, and I'm sure that today when we'll talk about them, we'll have much of knowledge about the areas in which both the countries' armed forces can cooperate. For today's session, we have 5 speakers, 2 from Pakistan and 3 from Poland, out of which 1 will be online. So I'll invite first speaker on the stage to take the seat on the stage, Mr. Air Commodore retired Dr. Zaidul Hassan. Second speaker is online, Dr. Lotaski, to whom we will be connecting in due course. Third speaker is Dr. Robert, who will be here. Please take the stage. The fourth speaker of today's session is Dr. Malia from Numal. And for keynote speech, I'll request Dr. Hap Alexander to please come on the stage so that we can have your presence also. So we have galaxy of great speakers sitting on the stage. One by one, they'll be coming and sharing their experiences. I'll request all my dear students to please listen to them carefully, because the kind of experience you're going to have in this particular session will be a kind of rock and roll. And in future also, if you see the baseline of Pakistan and Poland relationship, that is based on Pakistan and then the Royal Air Force of Pakistan and the Polish Air Force. So let's lend our ears to our august speakers. I'll narrate 2 rules for these speakers, please. One, that each speaker is requested to take 10 to 12 minutes when they are here. Question answer session will be at the end, and whenever it's getting more than 10 to 12 minutes, I'll try to remind you also. The first speaker is Air Commodore retired Dr. Zaidul Hassan. He's a PhD scholar at the Department of International Relations, Federal Urdu University. He'll be talking about Polish officers' role in establishing Royal Pakistan Air Force. So the podium is yours, Dr. Zaid.
Thank you, Dr. Minhas. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Respected faculty members of both the universities, ladies and gentlemen, Assalam Alaikum. In next about 10 or 12 minutes, I'll be trying my earnest effort to throw some light on a very important but yet very less known subject in Pakistan, especially that is role of the Polish airmen in establishing Pakistan Air Force, which was initially a Royal PAF, which was later on became a Pakistan Air Force. I'll be proceeding in the sequence as flashed. Before we proceed further, it looks in place to have some understanding about the contextual relevance of the then Pakistan, Poland, and some international scenario. Talking about the relevant international scenario, especially in the post-World War II, as we know that on the European front, The Yalta Conference of February 1945 had divided the Europe. Cooperation converted into confrontation, and Eastern Europe was placed behind the Iron Curtain, and we could see initiation of Cold War. While on the subcontinent front, Britishers, after achievement of political, military, and economic objectives, were feeling overstretched, overburdened, and politically exhausted. They really wanted to lay off decolonization and concentrate on the internal building of their country, which was devastated during the Second World War. In Pakistan's perspective, newly established Pakistan state was a resource constraint. We had a lot of challenges of rebuilding. There was an unfinished partition agenda by the leaving Britishers, which created the Kashmir issue. We were forced into a military conflict, and this was coupled with the departure of the British airmen who wanted to leave Pakistan immediately after establishing Pakistan, and it created critical shortage of the trained human resource. So there was an urgent requirement of especially skilled human resource of the Pakistan Air Force. On the Polish side, Poland had been the geopolitical, because of the geopolitical relevance, had been a playground, unfortunately, for warmongers we can witness in the course of history. However, Polish Air Force was very modern at that time. I'm talking about late 30s and early 40s. They were in step with the world in technology and training. In 1939, on the onset of the Second World War, the Polish Air Force consisted of 15 squadrons, out of which 8 were the fighter squadrons, 4 bomber squadrons, 1 air reconnaissance, 1 air defense, and 1 cooperator squadron. So it was a complete air force by any standards at that particular time. However, at the onset of war, like 1939, after the loss of defensive war against Germany, about 11,000 Polish people had to leave Poland, and many of them had to fight the rest of the war, especially people from Air Force while fighting from the Royal Air Force. And during this war, over 2,500 Polish airmen lost their lives while fighting war from the Royal Air Force. It was they really played a remarkable role and seriously dented the Luftwaffe Air Force of Germany. In the post-World War II scenario, Polish airmen were caught in a catch-22 situation. They were no more required, dumped by the Royal Air Force, and overnight heroes became aliens. They could not return to their own fatherland because they were not welcome because of the fear of persecution. And ultimately they felt betrayed, homeless, and in our Air Force language we call being left high and dry. So we can see that both countries had foreign domination and colonization. They had hostile background, neighborhood, and faced hostilities right from their inception. There was an acute scarcity of resources which was left behind by their old masters, and both countries forced into conflict right from their inception. Pakistan, as alluded earlier, due to the departure of the trained British airmen, created a critical shortage of trained human resource, while Polish airmen, they were feeling betrayed, homeless, looking for the opportunities. However, due to the prevalent geopolitical reasons, Pakistan could not sign the G2G contracts with the Polish people, and individual contracts were materialized. So in a nutshell, we can say that it was a marriage of convenience between the Polish airmen and the nascent Pakistan. Before we proceed further, have a very brief overview of the significance of the air power. Why air power was so critical at that particular time. We have seen over the year that Air Force has been the weapon of first choice by the warring states because of the unique attributes of speed, reach, and ubiquity. It can achieve political military objectives single-handedly and help other armed forces also to achieve their objectives. And it's a powerful means for power projection, and it has played decisive role since World War II in almost all the wars which have been fought later on. founding father of Pakistan, Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, was very much cognizant of the prowess of the Air Force, and despite scarcity of resources, expressed clear resolve and laid foundation of a strong, potent, and dynamic Air Force. He, while addressing a graduation ceremony at the Royal PF Flying Training College, Risalpur, on 13th April 1948, said a very famous quote, which almost known to every individual of the Pakistan Air Force, that any country without a strong Air Force is at the mercy of any aggressor. And we have seen it a number of times in our history. Pakistan must build up her Air Force as quickly as possible, and it must be an efficient Air Force, second to none. Now this brings me to the composition and diversity of Polish contingent. In order to recruit the Polish people, there was a two-member aviation commission which was established at the Pakistan High Commission, London. Eligible candidates were shortlisted literally out of hundreds. And resultantly, there were 30 Polish airmen who were selected finally for induction in the Royal Pakistan Air Force. That included pilots, flying trainers, flight engineers, aerial gunners, paraglide instructors, radio technicians, and maintenance staff. And finally, Polish contingent led by then squadron leader Władysław Torowicz, which was later on famously known as Turo in Pakistan Air Force. They landed in Karachi on 13 December 1948. The story of Polish airmen will never be complete without the mention of later on rose to the Air Commodore Władysław Torowicz. He was a PhD in aeronautical engineers, masters in aerodynamics, and a bomber pilot, and finally he was a test pilot, a very rarely achieved feat by individuals. He established technical training section in PF base Faisal, that was known as Rig Road in the earlier times. He commanded the first maintenance units at PF base Faisal. He established technical training unit at PF College Risalpur and also remained chief guest at the same college. He commanded PF stations Kohat and Chaklala, like PF bases Kohat and Chaklala. Great achievement. He rose to Assistant Chief of Air Staff Maintenance, and during 1965 war with India, must be a very interesting note for all of you, he ensured 97% availability of the PAF fleet despite American sanctions. Very great achievement. He retired as an Air Commodore in 1967, which is a one-star general in Pakistan Air Force. Other than the Air Force, we could see his services in the space, missile, and nuclear programs, which is again very less known to the people in Pakistan. He, along with Dr. Assalam, who himself was a Nobel laureate in physics, convinced then President Ayub Khan to start indigenous space program. They both convinced the Americans to invest in space program to counter Russians who launched Sputnik in 1968. And resultantly, Pakistani scientists were trained from NASA. He, after his retirement from Pakistan Air Force, became first executive director of SPARCO, that is Space and Upper Atmosphere Research Commission, in 1967, and continued to hold this position till 1970. He prepared satellite launch site at Somyani Test Firing Range and designed and launched multi-stage rockets, which later on became the basis of Pakistan's surface-to-surface missiles. Now today we can see the host of Ghauris and Shaheens, so the bases were laid down by Torowicz. And maybe information to all of you that he initiated nuclear program in 1969. He was the most decorated Polish Pakistani officer so far in the history of Pakistan. He was awarded with Sitare Pakistan, Tamghe Pakistan, Sitare Khidmat, Sitare Qaid-e-Azam, Sitare Imtiaz Military, Dr. Assalam Award in Aeronautical Engineering, and International Center for Theoretical Physics Award in Space Physics 1979. PF recognized the services of Torovich and placed a memorial in his honor at the PF Museum on 14th August 2006. And to my Polish colleagues, hopefully tomorrow you are going to visit the same monument, inshallah. There's also a Sparco. Sparco also established the Torovich Space Complex in Lahore. It is still there. And Pakistan Air Force introduced Torovich Trophy at our Aeronautical Engineering College, Risalpur. As we all know that every successful man has a role of a woman behind. So the story of Torovich is not complete without the mention of Mrs. Torovich, who was a remarkable lady with multifaceted personality. She enjoyed great respect amongst Pakistani students and the colleagues. She was simultaneously a sport aeroplane pilot, a paraglide instructor, taught physics, chemistry and maths in the Karachi University and Karachi American School. And resultantly, Government of Pakistan awarded Pride of Performance and Sitara Imtiaz to her. Let's have a brief glimpses of diverse fields serving Pakistan Air Force. There were other Polish airmen as well who rose to responsible and prominent positions other than the Air Commodore Torovich. They commanded fighter bomber squadrons, air transport squadrons, served at air headquarters, participated in wars of 1948 and 1965 while fighting from Pakistan Air Force, and established the Orient Airways, which later on became Pakistan International Airlines. I'll briefly cover their services one by one. First of all, in the air operation domain, they were very well trained and had a rich experience of World War II, set high professional standards for PF airmen, showed remarkable courage, commitment, and allegiance, and actively participated on our eastern and western fronts. Few hundreds of air-to-ground, air-to-air, and air-to-ground operational sorties. That one sortie is the one mission flown against the enemy forces. And resultantly, 2 Polish pilots also died while serving in Pakistan Air Force. In the air transport domain, Polish pilots, navigators, and air gunners of No. 6 Air Transport Squadron performed exceptionally well in difficult mountainous terrain and narrow valleys. They flew hundreds of sorties to airdrop supplies and arms. They undertook air transport sorties to Gilgit, which was a newly built airport right in the beginning. And they audaciously conducted air-to-ground, gunnery, and strafing missions in treacherous western mountains, especially on our western contingency, which was conducted against the famous Fakir of Ipi. Reposing trust and confidence in them, Squadron Leader Tarkovsky was assigned to the Flight and Communication Unit of the Governor General of Pakistan, which was itself a very remarkable achievement. In the maintenance field, Air Commodore Torovich set up a technical training school, as I've already alluded. Very important factor that he modernized aircraft support equipment maintenance facilities and introduced concepts of centralized inventory management, availability of trained personnel, aircraft repair and recovery facilities, and spares portability for PF fleet. He established maintenance and training unit at Faisal and Risalpur and introduced indigenization and self-reliance, which now we see in the form of Pakistan Aeronautical Complex Kamra, and kept the PF fleet up and running despite US sanctions during 1965 war. Polish technical team ensured maintenance of multiple types of aircraft of No. 6 Transport Squadron despite a lot of difficulties. Coming over to the training domain, they trained our pilots, navigators, gunners, radio operators, and aircraft maintenance and technicians at Royal PF Academy, Risalpur. There were 2 flight lieutenants who commanded flight training and navigator training squadrons at PF College, Risalpur. And especially I would like to mention Flight Lieutenant Gorzula and Flight Lieutenant Banach, who were very famous flying instructors amongst the Pakistani aviation students of that time. Both played key role in organizing induction camps for Royal PF at the leading universities and colleges of Pakistan. They established air gunnery and radio, electronics and training setups for the Royal PF. Coming over to the glider training, in those times it used to be and even still today, a prerequisite for the flight cadets across the modern world. Mrs. Zofia and Mrs. Maria Yunga, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, they were expert and experienced glider instructors. They taught glider training at Karachi, Shaheen Scouts, Rawalpindi, and flight cadets at PF Flying Training College, Risalpur. Both enjoyed deep respect and liking by their students. They were truly a unique and pleasant experience for the traditional Muslim community. This brings me to briefly analyze the political, social, historical, and cultural aspects. They were regarded as more friendly and pleasant and sociable, which may be attributed that they were not amongst the colonial masters, rather they were employed by the Pakistan Air Force and the PF. They themselves had been subjected to the agony of living under the occupational forces. It brought color to the social life, actively participated in our mess lives, and beaches in Karachi were the famous destinations for them. PF, as we all know, we are gentle blind, we carry no religious, caste or creed biases, and they felt at liberty to pursue social and cultural endeavors, and especially, as alluded earlier, women instructors brought pleasant social sense. There was a scarcity of literature, as we observe, that there are no personal diaries, magazines, research articles, books, films, or documentaries, which may be attributed to as Polish aviators had to flee their country and fight rest of the war from Royal Air Force. Uncomfortable working environment, circumstances under which they reached Pakistan were more of a compulsive than optional. And Iron Curtain barred literature to flow across either side. Pakistan was circumstantially inclined to take side with the US-led Western Bloc, mainly because of that subcontinent was participated in World War as a British colony, and at the time of partition, there were hosts which were related to the outgoing Britishers. Pakistan was compelled to keep induction at low key because Pakistan and Poland were in opposite political camps. Polish government had close ties with the pro-Soviet Indian government and didn't own Polish airmen serving in Pakistan. Or to geopolitical and geoeconomic compulsions, Pakistan could not officially recognize. Exchange of official documents was not materialized, and it discouraged the private individuals to carry some research. In order to conclude, I would say that they really built PF in all domains, including operational training, air transport, and maintenance. They played an unforgettable role in shaping PF's edifice of excellence, and it was only after dropping of the Iron Curtain that we could see contacts at personal and official levels established, and we established a monument, as already explained. There is the space complex at Sparko, and we could see a documentary coming up in 2008, and autobiography of Air Commodore Turovich, published in our magazine of Pakistan Air Force, named second to none in 2020. There's a book on Professor Alexander Golokowski sitting right next to us, which was published and translated in 2016. And there are a few articles here and there, and in the same domain, myself making an earnest effort to throw some light on a very vast subject. Ladies and gentlemen, despite number of diversities, we have number of converging grounds as well. And these number of fields, there are further deepen mutual cooperation and have a bright future with sheer progress and prosperity. This is my firm belief. With this, I thank you for your patient hearing. Pakistan Zindabad, Pakistan-Poland friendship Zindabad, Polish-Pakistani airmen Zindabad.
Thank you, Air Commodore Dr. Zaid, for putting us wise regarding the role of Polish officers, especially Air Commodore Władysław Joseph, who has been instrumental behind Pakistan's space program, missile program, as well as the nuclear program, not the weapon part of it, but the civil nuclear technology. So let's join our hands together again to thank Air Commodore retired Viladislah for putting Pakistan into such a better position today. So we have next speaker online. We have next speaker online, Dr. Lutaski. He's assistant professor at the Institute of Political Science, University of Warmia and Mazury, Poland. The title on which he'll be speaking is Polish Perspective on the Development of Pakistan-Polish Cooperation in the Military Field. Dr. Lutaski, the rostrum is yours.
Thank you, General. Good morning. My name is Piotr Tarski. I'm former retired. Presently, I'm assistant professor in the Institute of Political Science. At the outset, I would like to express my satisfaction with the participation in the first Polish-Pakistani conference and hope that my speech will have at least a small impact on the future context of our country. The aim of my speech is an attempt to develop the military cooperation between Poland and Pakistan in this century and try to identify possibilities of strengthening this relation. In preparation for my speech, I explored areas such as political military cooperation, equipment, humanitarian relief, arms purchases, political defense industry, and I prepared some proposals. What brings us together? Both Poland and Pakistan have developed similar types of armed forces and defense industry. The Pakistani industry produced ships, planes, tanks, combat vehicles, and small arms. Importantly, it produced nuclear weapons and rockets to carry them and fight it, which exceed Polish experience. The most important events in our relations happened in 2007 when the Pakistani President President Lech Kaczynski. This event was very promising. They discussed about terrorism after the attack in USA and need to combat terrorism. They underlined that closer cooperation is necessary. After 3 years of the death of President Kaczynski, talks continued in Poland at the level of national defense ministers. Polish defense minister talked about cooperation with chairman of the Senate of Pakistan. They discussed about protests related to the end of the ISAF mission in Afghanistan. 2 years after in Poland, the chief of staff of the Navy of Pakistan, who I know was the commander of the Navy, met with the general commander of Polish Armed Forces. They talked about the cooperation of the navies. 2 months later, during the defense exhibition in Kielce, Polish Minister of Defense talked with Minister of Defense Production of Pakistan. Next important event took place in Warsaw in 2018 when the Polish Minister of Defense IR-FUUAST and Pakistani Quran Khan during the meeting signed the framework agreement of mutual cooperation in the field of defense. The contract covered areas such as peace, humanitarian and other military operation, organization of armed forces, logistics support, military education and training of military personnel, military exercise, law and economics, and history of the army and military zone. It's also important topic. Implementing the agreement, the Polish Navy sent military minor divers for exercise among 19 in Karachi, in Pakistan, sea. But it was only one exercise and training. At the invitation of the Chief of Staff of the Pakistani Armed Forces, a delegation led by Polish Commander General visited Pakistani Armed Forces in 2019. The main purpose of the visit was keeping bilateral cooperation. Polish commander spoke also with the commander of the Air Force, Joint Chief of Staff. He also visited the Museum of Land Forces. The same year, the delegation headed by the commander of Pakistani Air Force visited the Polish Air Force unit in the city. They were very interested in Polish training centers and the latest generation flight simulation devices. On notice in 2019, competition for network reconnaissance units when Polish and Spanish soldiers was under the codename Camper Platform held in Great Britain. In the era of humanitarian mission, two events should be mentioned. In 2005-2006, Poland sent a military contingent to Pakistan in Operation Sweet Lily. We sent engineering company and geological sciences and rescue dogs to deal with the aftermath of earthquake in Pakistan. The accident took place in this year. I noticed that Pakistan sent twice humanitarian flights to Ukraine by Poland. So, what brings us together? This is similar equipment. So we should see that we use the same equipment, like combat material aircraft, helicopter, military transport aircraft, combat boats, FUUAST. An underline refers to equipment manufactured in Poland. If we talk about answers from Poland and Pakistan, are conducted at a low level. The balance has not exceeded several €100,000 per year in the recent 12 years. But I did not from Pakistan to Poland. It's worth pointing out that the main Polish companies producing the equipment for the biggest one, huge in our region, is Polska Grupa Zbrojeniowa, PGZ. They manufactured APC, Rosoma, infantry fighting vehicle, Warsaw, self-prepared howitzer craft, self-prepared mortars, man-parts, rifles, rods. Also private companies manufactured important equipment like helicopters, PZL Mielec, PZL Witnik, UAS, Buberno, also equipment for communication from land forces. Company Warmia is produce unit profits west ballistic helmets. Underline refers to combat proven equipment in Ukraine. Also, PGZ was visited by a delegation from Pakistan in 2017. During the visit, the the potential of cooperation in the non-platform sector was discussed. I prepare some cooperation proposal. In my opinion, Polish special forces cannot be overlooked. Most famous of them is GROM. Polish special forces considered to be one of the best in NATO countries, and that they have experience from years of operation in many regions of the world, including Afghanistan. Among other tasks, the GROM decided to fight terrorism. Most attention is the proposal to train staff at Polish universities. We have several academies and universities educating soldiers and civilians with many fields of study. Most important is war studies university for high staff, high military staff. And the biggest military university of technology in Warsaw. Polish Navy Academy prepare high personnel for Navy. Polish Air Force University is educated navigators, pilots, and military university of armed forces. This is university dedicated for commanders, army reserve forces. My conclusions are, like you see, we conduct most contacts on political, military levels, also president's levels. So most important agreement was on military cooperation was signed in 2008. Currently, however, they are conducted at a low level, especially in the field of answers, the balance of which has not exceeded several €700,000 per year in the recent 12 years. So in my opinion, the needs of the rapid development of the Polish armed forces and the enlargement of the Polish defense industry may contribute to an increase in cooperation in the past. Poland could use experience in the reduction of political missiles. It should be noted that the tightening of relations took place just before the COVID era. Today, war in Ukraine is very absorbed for the Polish authorities. The military relations of both countries have very developed perspectives ahead of them. So, I will read a sentence uttered by President Lech Kaczynski in 2007 during the welcome of President Busha. He summarized the relations between the countries in this way. These relations are not on a great level and then develop dynamically. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lotarski. We are indebted. He shared his thoughts about the various prospects regarding cooperation between Poland and Pakistani armed forces. And as he said that we have a framework on defense cooperation, we need to further utilize it so that we can take better utilization of each country's expertise. With this, we move on to the third speaker of the fifth session. He's Dr. Robert, and he's Assistant Professor, Political Science, University of Lodz, Poland, and he'll be talking about defense and security cooperation between Pakistan and Poland, between realities and expectations. Dr. Robert.
12 minutes, right? 12 minutes.
12 minutes, yeah. 12 minutes, yeah. Let me also announce that I'll request students to keep noting down the various questions, and at the end of the session, we'll invite the questions so that you know to whom you have to speak to ask the questions, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's a great honor and also a fun to be here. Before I start my presentation, just maybe a short introduction. So apart from being an academic, I work at Poland, so my topic is foreign policy security. I also work as a journalist and an analyst, and my topic is defense and defense industry. So this presentation is part of my research. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about Polish-Pakistani defense cooperation, security cooperation. I wanted to start with the history, but we already said that several times, so I don't want to bore you again with the same information. Also, I wanted to mention the history, Polish pilots, but we had a great presentation, and we are going to have one more presentation by a distinguished Professor Głogowski, who will also explain details. So let me focus on current situation. So as it was said earlier, Polish-Pakistani defense security cooperation is quite symbolic, although we have some good examples, including Polish involvement in a humanitarian assistance in 2005-2006, when Poland deployed some troops to Pakistan to help after a crisis. And also every year in Poland we have MSPO, which is a big international trade, defense trade, and Pakistani delegations always visit these trades. We have several examples of different visits, usually of Pakistani officials coming to Poland, like in 2017 when there was a delegation from Pakistan to Polish military academy in Warsaw, and an example of Polish systems, products used by Pakistan. So Pakistani special forces have been using Polish boats. They have been manufactured in Poland and then sold to Pakistan. So that's one example, and these are photos from this Polish mission in Pakistan, relief mission a few years ago. And another example of example showing that there is a willingness to do something together is a visit of Pakistani delegation to Poland in 2017 by a CEO of a big Pakistani company, POF, and they have visited major Polish defense companies like Tarnów, Łucznik. They produce rifles, different light arms. PCO, which is an expert in different systems like night vision goggles and individual high-tech equipment. MESCO, also producer of different arms. So that was a destination of this Pakistani delegation. And one of topic discussed between Poland and Pakistan was a possible sale from Poland to Pakistan of new rifles, which have been designed recently by Poland, very advanced new system, MSBS, which is a standard rifle. So, and Poland offered to sell this system to Pakistan, and the Pakistani delegation was briefed about that system. So it's not only a rifle; it's the whole system, different components and different versions. So this is a very a modern solution. So this is one of topics which has been on table for several years, and that might be a possible sale in a future. Who knows? So it's not only about light arms. There are some talks about heavier systems, heavier military products. So to give you an example, also in 2017 there was a different delegation from Pakistan coming to Poland, and they paid a visit to PGZ. PGZ is the biggest Polish defense company. It's a state-owned company, or in fact company. So this is an umbrella organization with many smaller companies below. And this is a quote from the press. So this visit to Poland was seen by the Polish press. There were some stories, articles, comments from Polish experts who are saying that there is a room for cooperation, and there is also a desire to do something together. So there were some discussions about possible cooperation between Polish heavy industry and also with Pakistani heavy industry, like producers of tanks and other heavier systems. Sorry. So that was also an example talks between Poland and Pakistan. And next year, in 2018, there was a high-ranked visit in Poland, a meeting with the Polish Minister of Defense, Mariusz Błaszczak, and back then they signed an agreement regarding a cooperation, which is a framework which allows you to start different initiatives. So this agreement and this agreement creates, like I said, a framework for cooperation. So, for example, one of such fields is related to peacekeeping and humanitarian operations and other international military missions, like the one in Pakistan we had a few years ago. Different activities related to logistic support, training, and military exercises. So I think this is a good field of cooperation, like training Pakistani troops in Poland or training Polish special forces in Pakistan. That could be a very good example of cooperation. And apart from training, it could be also, at least according to this agreement, military history and museums. So this is also could be an example of bilateral ties. So our Polish defense industry has said several times that they see Pakistan, although current ties are not that important, they see Pakistan as a potential partner when it comes to industrial cooperation. And here we can see a quote from one of the officials from PGZ, Board of Directors of PGZ. It's a quote from 2017. And back then, in 2017, it was revealed that some Polish products had already been tested in Pakistan by the Pakistani military. We don't know, of course, details, but there were some rumors that it has happened. So. What can we do together? So apart from transfer of light arms, this is usually the easiest sale, like rifles, machine guns, grenade launchers, sniper rifles, munition, and like I said, there was already a visit in Polish companies related to this issue. A different field of cooperation are trainings, both of training Pakistani troops in Poland and training Polish military personnel here in Pakistan when it comes to urban warfare, special operation, non-conventional warfare. That could be also a potential field of cooperation. There is potential field when it comes to Bayraktar UAVs. Poland has procured them from Turkey, the same with Pakistan. Pakistan also bought them, so there might be potential field, we could do something together, like exchange of experience, information. That could be, like I said, a good option. Modernization packages. This is also an option offered by Poland. So Poland is willing to help Pakistan to modernize its army, its armed forces, mainly land forces like tanks and different vehicles. So to give you an example. So there were some stories that Poland could sell Polish tanks, PT-91, although right now they have been sent to Ukraine, so it's probably not possible anymore. Although we still have that kind of technology, so we could use them to improve Pakistani tanks. Or different stories that maybe Poland could sell its crab howitzers, which are very efficient. They are right now in Ukraine, killing Russians every day, which is a great news. Or we could offer the war-made loitering munition, which is also used in Ukraine by the Ukrainian army. Although when it comes to systems like crop, it might be difficult due to several reasons, including legal reasons. Because if you want to sell something, you need to have a permission if you use a license, and this system is based on different licenses. Although we still have some technologies which are our own technologies, so we could use them. And going to the end, in 2017, it was revealed that Pakistani army has been testing the Arava system for protection system for tanks, and it has been hinted that Poland could also offer its expertise when it comes to new ballistic armor, turret system design, different systems, machine guns, remote control turrets. We have one of the best systems in the world, which can be also offered for exports, electronic systems, individual equipment. So I have 1 minute, just a few words of conclusion. So of course there are also challenges. So a Polish record when it comes to export is quite minimal. We have an experience in the Philippines. We do have an experience with India. Right now we have an experience with South Korea, but our export is quite, very poor. It's also a problem of legal issues. If you want to sell something, you have to obey rules, and that might be a problem. And to give you an example, when Pakistan decided to buy the Bayraktar UAVs from Turkey, some Western companies banned Turkey from selling the systems to Pakistan, and Turkish companies had to use different systems, Turkish ones. Political issues like China and Russia factor, close relations with China, between Pakistan and China, might be a problem because China is a friend, a partner of Russia, and we don't really have good ties with Russia anymore. And a scenario when Polish Western NATO standard systems are acquired by Russia or China, it's not a scenario we want to see. And also there is a US factor in India. If we wanted to sell something, we would need a permission, a green light from the US, because this is our main ally. And also an Indian factor for you, because we had a past experience with India. And I can stop here. Thank you very much for
So this was Dr. Robert, who was putting us wise regarding the current developments on military cooperation between Poland and Pakistan. He talked about 2018-2019 defense framework, in which Pakistan and Poland are cooperating with regard to the training, logistics supports, and in case of disaster in terms of humanitarian grounds. He also just suggested in probable cooperation area the transfer of technology with regard to the small arms and the training of soldiers and officers in the Polish military academy. बच्चों दो जुमले उर्दू के अंदर भी कि जब हमारे मेहमान इतने दूर से ट्रैवल करके आए हों तो मेरे ख्याल में हम चूँकि मशहूर हैं अपनी मेहमान नवाजी के लिए और अपने मेहमानों को इज़्ज़त देने के लिए, तो मेरे ख्याल में हमें हॉल में खामोशी रखनी चाहिए ताकि वो भी अच्छा फील कर सकें कि वो किसी अच्छे मेहमान नवाज मुल्क के अंदर आए हुए हैं. तो लेट्स जॉइन मी in thanking our Polish and the Pakistani speakers who have traveled all the way to put us wise on Pakistan-Polish relationship. Thank you, बच्चों. बहुत शुक्रिया आपका. The fourth speaker of today's session is Dr. Manira Zeba Khan. She has traveled all the way from Islamabad. She is a faculty member and assistant professor at the Department of International Relations, National University of Modern Languages, Islamabad, and she's one of the most liked teacher in Numbal. As I know, Dr. Farat tells me about Dr. Zeba that she's very popular among the students. I'm sure that she'll present us with this. So she'll be, thank you very much. She'll be talking about the paradox of maritime security in Baltic Sea. Remember, Baltic Sea is very strategically important sea. Lessons for Poland and Pakistani perspective. So the podium is yours, Dr. Zeba.
Thank you very much, sir. Honorable Chair, Professor Dr. Ahmed Said Menhas, fellow speakers, dignitaries, and dear students. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day. I'm here to present on the topic, Paradox of Maritime Security in Baltic Sea, Lessons for Poland, a Pakistani Perspective. This is the sequence of presentation. And since I do have only 10 to 12 minutes, as Chair has mentioned before, I'm not going to waste too much of time, and I'm trying to be focused on the topic. This is the core proposition of this research. The Baltic Sea as a geospatial realm has entered into a passive transitional phase of maritime security paradigm shift, reflecting difficulty in collapsing traditional approach before adopting non-traditional approaches of maritime security as an overpowering reality of contemporary era. This research has been established on these three fundamental questions. First question is that why has paradigm shift within maritime security become pertinent as well as mandatory in contemporary era with reference to Baltic Sea? Second question is, how has geography made this maritime region a captive of traditional security mindset, creating a paradoxical situation for the region? And third question is, why should Poland reconfigure its foreign policy to align it with non-traditional aspects of maritime security? So the first question which is here is, why are seas and oceans important? This is the answer, the broader answer. Humanity, global flows, and sustainability. But this is not the only answer, because it covers a lot of big discussion in it. This is the first point, which we are getting from the sea, food and nutrition. Then there is trade and commerce, which is related with the sea. Your everyday life is incomplete without the sea and this trade. There is energy. There is economy. There is spread of religions and civilizations that is also due to the sea. There is connectivity. We all are connected through the seas. There is a quote which we always use, that land divides and sea unites. We all are connected with each other through the seas. There is environment which is very important. There is foreign policy and diplomacy. Law enforcement is very important in this region, because when there is a lot of things going on in the sea, there would be law enforcement as well. And last but not the least is security and militarization. Now comes the concept of maritime security. Since we all know that all of us, majority of us, are coming from IR, we know that in the post-Cold War era, there was a security paradigm shift from traditional to non-traditional. And if I mention here that I have structured my research on the footsteps established by Barry Bizan, Oliver, and Jaap de Wilde, I would say that I have established it on the concept of securitization, which has 5 sectors basically. Now, if we look at maritime security, there are 2 parts: traditional security and non-traditional security, as I have mentioned earlier. First, looking at traditional side, because that is the side which is keeping all of us captivated. Military security, that is there in the sea, and that is covering military exercises. Naval competition is there, and nuclearization is there. And last but not the least is technological advancement. Another side is political security. That has been one important part of traditional security. Geopolitics, sovereignty, and order at sea. Now coming to non-traditional side, environmental security is very important. Nowadays we all talk about climate change and things like that. There is pollution in the sea, which is causing problems for the trade and the food as well. There is acidification, And one big aspect of this loss is that due to the pollution and acidification, marine biodiversity is changing. There is a massive loss in the sea of marine biodiversity. This is another aspect, economic security, which covers shipping, fisheries, mineral extraction, and another sector is societal or social security, which is also related with the sea. Cultures and values, human and social securities, and transnational linkages. So coming directly to Baltic Sea region, you can see in the map, this region is covering 10 states. And Baltic Sea is inland sea, marginal sea of Atlantic Ocean, and it is connected with Atlantic through Danish Strait, which is quite narrow. Now comes a real question: what is the paradox of maritime security in Baltic Sea? This is traditional maritime security, and this is non-traditional maritime security. We have to compare these two areas. First point is Russia versus Western countries. That is the biggest dilemma of that region, which is keeping all Baltic states captive of that certain mindset which is not coming out of traditional competition. Basically, whenever we talk about Western countries, do not forget that NATO is there. You have to focus on the presence of NATO. There is forward positioning of NATO in 4 countries of this region, and 2 more are waiting to get enlisted in that NATO list. Then there is a naval and military competition, which is increasing day by day. And whenever we talk about naval and military competition, do not forget that one big reflection of this competition is war exercises or naval exercises which are being conducted in that region, and the intensity of those exercises, the nature of those exercises, and the frequency of exercises is changing with every passing day. Once it was focused, the nature of exercises was focused on capabilities, but now they are basing it on simulation practices of full-fledged war and nuclear attacks. So it is making it nuclearized as well. And last point is residual of First and Second World War, and there is dumped equipment and ammunition which is there in that sea, making it difficult to be handled in terms of non-traditional security threats. Now moving to the other side, there is climate change. Since it is brackish water, the climate change is changing the pattern of floods which is there to maintain the level of water, and the level of salinity is also being changed, which is causing eutrophication. When eutrophication is there, oxygen level would be low, and several species could be extinct from that ocean or the sea. Pollution is there, which is due to different chemicals and other shipping activity in that region. Harmful fishing practices are there, just like every other sea and ocean. We are noticing that harmful fishing practices, the use of wrong nets, that is there. And devastated fish stocks. Due to all these activities, due to pollution and due to all these things, fish stock is devastating. That means that fish stock, the lowering number of fish or extincting of the fish, is going to affect your food chain. And that is causing the real paradox of maritime security in Baltic Sea region. Look at this picture. That is looking very colorful. I clicked this picture at 12:25 a.m. today. That is reflecting the number of ships which were there in Baltic Sea at that time. If this big number of ships is there in that region, that means a lot of economic activity going on in that region, which needs to be monitored, which needs to be governed by certain mechanism. And on the one hand, it is bringing economic opportunities, but on the other hand, there are ship emissions as well. Now I will talk about lessons for Poland, because I have a limited time and I do not want to exceed those minutes. Sir, do I have 1 or 2 minutes extra?
12 minutes.
Okay. Right. So these are the lessons. With Pakistani perspective, as we already are facing lots of non-traditional security threats in our own waters, we can compare ourselves with Poland, and some of the lessons which can be drawn for the Poland with this Pakistani perspective which are here. First thing is reconfiguring of Poland's foreign policy. That is very much important, because contestation or competition is engaging us more than required, more than needed. We need to look beyond those traditional things, and we need to look at non-traditional aspects. Second point is peace and stability. Since Russia is there, since war between Russia and Ukraine is affecting this region very much, this region needs to be looked for peace and stability, and Poland needs to assure that this peace and stability is there. There should be swift shift toward non-traditional maritime security. That is about change of mindset. I'm not talking about leaving everything behind. Yes, defense capabilities should be intact. Those should be very much strengthened. But do not forget that non-traditional maritime security is also important, because that is related with human security. Next thing is sustainable economy. Again, related with the ocean, all economic activity is going on there. And one point I had noted here that was quite interesting for me, and obviously that would of your interest as well, that Poland has national fleet of 146 ships, which is carrying 102,000 deadweight tonnage. That is a big volume of trade which is being dealt by Poland, and they are having their own ships. That means that they have to address related issues as well. Then environmental protection, and last is hybrid maritime security. Since cyber attacks are there, since pollution is there, since propaganda is there, and war is already going on there, that is causing a hybrid kind of threat in that region, and Poland has to face these threats and has to deal with these threats as well. And I will conclude with this thing, that Baltic Sea needs to make maritime security paradigm shift, get transitioned from traditional to non-traditional swiftly, as it is quite significant for not letting the region a prisoner of geography any longer for broader good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zeba. She covered in detail regarding the paradoxical part of traditional and non-traditional security in terms of Baltic Sea location. She also suggested a number of lessons to be learned by the Poland, so that they look after their peace and security besides the economic situation as well. So with this, we reached to the climax of our today's session, the fifth session, which is regarding the military cooperation between Poland and Pakistan. And for the keynote speech, now I request Dr. Hab Alexander, who is the author of one of the book on the same topic, and he'll introduce about that book even. He's from Institute of Political Science and International Relations at Jagiellonian University, Krakow, Poland. So for the keynote speech, I request Dr. Hab Alexander to please take the rostrum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the possibility and to organizer for the possibility to present that interesting topic. It is great honor and pleasure. But according to the speech about the maritime matters, and I see the Navy officer here on the first row, I would like to mention that not only Air Force officers, but also one Navy officer from Poland took part in teaching and leading Pakistani armed forces, namely Navy. The Admiral Romuald Nałęcz-Tymiński was first destroyer commander and destroyer fleet commander of Pakistan Navy then. He just passed away in 21st century. So many researchers had an opportunity to interview him, and maybe even somebody is present. So I think he has been worth to be mentioned here at that moment. But let's back to the aviation officers. So as Air Commodore said, Poland in 1980s was in a similar situation as Pakistan in 1947. The reviving state, after years of captivity, had to build its armed forces from scratch, and they were immediately put into the test. In case of Pakistan, it was the war with India over Kashmir, that first war in 1947. In case of Poland, it was Bolshevik aggression in 1920. Both countries had a similar serious problems with rapid training of personnel for the emerging aviation, because just as the British did not trust the soldiers from the subcontinent and did not want them in the ranks of technical weapons, namely high ranks of Air Force, armed corps and the Navy. So the Poland suffered the same in case of Germany, Austria, Hungary and Russia. Also, both countries at the beginning had similar problems related to the modest budget that could be allocated for the problem of training of personnel. So in Poland it was decided that gliding would be a very important factor in the initial selection of cadets and the initial training. Numerous training centers were established where the youngsters underwent initial pilot classes for these low-cost aircraft. Gliding was also supported as a sport discipline to encourage young people to start their adventure with flying. Thanks to that solution, we Poles were able to train excellent pilots who celebrated triumphs during the World War II. Namely during the Battle of Britain and operation held by RAF Bomber Command over Germany. So when after the war, for political reasons, the return of our soldiers was impossible, as the Commodore mentioned, because of some threat of prosecution and even execution for taking part in the Western Alliance. So those people just had to search for another job, and they find it in Pakistan. Air Commodore mentioned about Air Commodore Torowicz as a well-known, best-known person, but I would like to recall also other figures who were important. One of them was Colonel Jan Zbigniew Mikulski. Before the war, he was a well-known aviator and glider pilot. In 1934, he became the commandant of higher glider school in Sokola Góra near Kremenets, now it is in Ukraine. During the World War II, he served among others in transport command of RAF. It was then he visited present-day Pakistan for the first time. I mean Pakistan, it was then in British India, obviously. He also trained Royal Air Force pilots in flying gliders. In 1948, he set a record of Poland in the longevity and of a glider flight. Upon his arrival in Pakistan in '49, he became the organizer of the first commandant of the Central Gliding School as chief gliding instructor and officer commanding here in Karachi. He also initiated the creation of the Air Scouts youth organization, which is now Shaheen Air Training Corps of Cadets. He trained gliders in Lahore, Chaklala, also in Bangladesh, Dhaka and Chittagong, so it was then Pakistan. So he can also be called as one of the fathers not only of Pakistani but also Bangladeshi aviation. He was the first foreigner to be awarded Tamha-i Basalat. So after leaving Pakistan Air Force, he moved to Britain, and so he passed away in that country. His wife, Maria Jonga-Mikulska, was also glider pilot. In 1930s, as one of the first women in Poland, she completed gliding courses at Air Club in Lviv. Okay, and so she moved to Pakistan after the Second World War, and she was one of the instructors in Central Gliding School in Karachi. Air Commodore had told us about those two officers who died on duty in Royal Pakistan Air Force, so I'd like to mention one of them. He was Bolesław Kaczmarek, was the squadron leader of Royal Pakistan Air Force. He was penultimate commander of 302 Poznański Fighter Squadron during the World War II. He was recipient of 5th class of Virtuti Militaris, the highest military decoration of Poland. And he also acquired 3 times the Cross of Valor, as well as Dutch and British decorations for his outstanding war effort. He served in Pakistan, and he has been killed in air accident, air crash. What is important, he saved the life of his Pakistani pupil. You know, those two planes of his students almost crashed each other. He just flew past near of them and just touched one of those planes, saving that pilot, and he crashed with another one, so both guys has passed away. And Mr. Kaczmarek is buried here in Gora Kabaristan in Karachi, so you can pay your respect to his graveyard. And Mr. Khurasmi's, so that guy who survived brother, he's still alive, and I'm in touch with him by an email. Another pilot who died on duty was Mr. Banach, the captain of Polish Air Force. He was basic flight trainer in Royal Pakistani Air Force. He died in an air crash in 1964 when he was a private pilot for Atok Oil Company in Pakistan. He has been buried in Harley Street Christian Cemetery in Rawalpindi, and his graveyard is restored courtesy to a former Polish ambassador, Mr. Piotr Paliński, and myself in some ways, because I find out where the graveyard is. And third person who passed away on duty was Captain Wacław Kosakowski, who was gunnery instructor. And I had an honor and pleasure to meet personally, unfortunately only by virtual media, where Captain Kazimierz Kozak, who had very warm memories from his service in Pakistan. After completing his tenure here, he moved to the United States when he passed away just a couple of years ago, but he shared his memoirs with me, so it was very useful in completion of my book. And also there was another pilot, Captain Henryk Kudliński, who was a bomber pilot during the Second World War. He served in Badabar Air Force Base near of Peshawar, the same base from which famous U-2 American plane started, which has been shot down over the Soviet Union. And he also recalled his flight in Gilgit-Baltistan. It was very hard for him, very dangerous experience piloting in that remote mountainous area, especially in those times without GPS support and so on. But he also, it was very interesting and intriguing experience for him as for a pilot. So even let's say 50 years after that, he was very impressed by that. And one of his colleagues, co-pilot who flew with him, made a picture of Nanga Parbat mountain, which has been given to our Alpinist Society, and it is present in chair of that organization room in Warsaw now. I would like to mention at the end Mr. Mieczysław Mike Gorzula, because he came from my home city, Krakow. He lived in the same suburb, exactly. And now he has a monument as a war hero, let's say 500 meters from my first home, when I spent my first 28 years of my life. He was born in 1990. He was graduated at the University of Warsaw, Faculty of Trade, what is interesting. He served as a pilot of different squadrons. He was one of the first Polish pilots who had shot down German jet plane over Britain. So it is proof that he was very experienced. I mean, it was a Messerschmitt Me-262 jet plane, exactly. He was an instructor here in Pakistan. He used Tiger Moth and Harvard planes to teach the students. He has been very well remembered by his pupils here in Pakistan. On that movie of Redaktor Pietraszek, which was mentioned by Air Commodore, his name is recalled, and his picture is also shown there. After this his tenure in Pakistan, he moved to Australia, to Canberra, when he spent the rest of his life. So only one of those Polish pilots returned to Poland alive. He was Wiktor Dobrzański, bomber pilot from the Second World War time. So he moved, and also he spent his life in the city of Poznań, in the western Poland, but he decided to be buried near of my home, Krakow. So I had an opportunity to pay a prayer over his graveyard near of my home. Most of those people decided to migrate from Pakistan to other countries, mostly Australia, Canada, and the United States, some of them to the United Kingdom, because they still were unable to return alive to Poland because of that political reasons, you know, that Eastern Bloc and so on. But after their death, their last wish were usually to be buried in Poland. So, especially after the fall of the Eastern Bloc, their remains were transferred to Poland and buried, usually in Warsaw, in Powązki Military Cemetery, but some of them has their graveyard in their home cities, like nearby Krakow and so on. And they are remembered by local communities. The graves are in very good conditions. So it will be a great honor for me to visit Gora Kabaristan tomorrow to pay my prayers, offer my prayers to Mr. Turowicz and his wife and Mr. Kaczmarek, as well as those refugees who passed away in that refugee camps which were mentioned in the previous session. So, as a keynote speaker, I can say from that moment that I hope that those roots from the past could be very effective in our future cooperation on the military level, military training, as well as some military business contracts on arms sale in the future. So there are strong traditions which can be used by us in establishing fruitful relations in the future and the present moment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. He put us educated basically about the role of Polish officers, aviation officers in putting our Air Force today at such an excellence that when we roar in the skies of Pakistan, the man behind our training are the Polish officers and the Polish nation. So let's join me again thanking them together. Okay, thank you very much. Since there's hardly any time left for the lunch, I invite only 2 questions. Dr. Lutatsky, Dr. Robert, Dr. Alexander, Dr. Zeba, Dr. Zaid are sitting here. If you have questions, I'll invite only 2 questions. Okay, my friend there at the back. Yes, please. Can you introduce yourself, only the university you belong to, semester, and ask the question. Be very short and crisp and to the point. Single question, please. Kindly put your mic close to your mouth, please.
My question is that ISIS, Islamic State, Iraq and Syria is become organized in Afghanistan. Will it be threat to our country, Pakistan? My question is to Sir Robert.
Your question is to?
Sir Robert.
Doctor. He didn't understand.
My question
Me too.
is that ISIS, Islamic State, Iraq and Syria is become organized in Afghanistan. Will it be threat to our country, Pakistan? Sir Robert, please.
I don't think so. This question is related to, like, he's asking about the role of ISIS and in Syria and what kind of impact we have on our Pakistan security. I don't think so that this question is relevant to the topic. Anyone else, please? My daughter there in the white suit. Please.
Alaikum, this is Neha Mukhtar from the Department of BSc. My question is, Mr. Robert, any educational or academic support from Poland to the Pakistani history, please share.
The opportunities with regard to the education you're asking.
Yes.
The prospect of cooperation, the field of education for our students.
Well, education is a very big and broad topic, so there are different opportunities. So first, for Poland, the priority countries are other EU countries. So most programs are for students from EU countries. Although there are also many programs for non-EU countries. So for example, any university in the world can apply for Erasmus funds, and then students can apply. So, and of course, there's also sometimes a list of states which are countries which are preferred, but also Pakistan, I believe, is on that list. For example, a few years ago, we had an agreement with Iran, and students from Iran came to Poland. So, I think the same story with Pakistan. So, the first step is to sign an agreement between 2 universities, and then students will apply.
Okay.
तो मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि आज हम 21वीं सेंचुरी में रहते हैं और पहले आज हम देखते हैं तो मिलिट्री से ज़्यादा जो कंट्री मजबूत होती है वो इकोनॉमिकली होती है। तो मेरा क्वेश्चन रॉबर्ट सर से है कि अभी अगर इनके मुल्क के साथ कहीं जंग छिड़ जाती है फॉर एग्जांपल, तो ये अपनी इकोनॉमी के ऊपर ज़्यादा जोर लगेंगे या अपनी मिलिट्री जो अफराद हैं उनको बढ़ाएंगे या मिलिट्री को मजबूत करेंगे?
Okay, the student asked the question that it's the era of economy. So if you have security challenges, will your priorities will be towards the economy or towards building the armed forces?
Poland, right?
About the Poland, of course.
Yes, so we have two, like I said, there are two challenges: economy, prices. We have right now inflation, but of course it's also a problem of Russian aggression, Russian expansion. So the priority is right now defense. because you can be poor, but you have to survive. So when you have to make a choice, which element is the most important, we decided to put a focus on security. That's why we're investing a lot of money, which will most likely increase problems, economic problems, because you have to pay more for the armed forces. And we would prefer to spend that money on schools, on roads, on hospitals, but in the current situation, there is no other choice but to invest in the army to deter an aggression. Because we don't want to have any war. We want to stop a war, and to do that, we have to make that clear that if we are invaded, we are going to fight.
Okay, since we are not left with any further time for the question answer, but I really appreciate the number of questions, the hands being raised. That means the session was interesting and people are really have enjoyed the talk. I'll take 3 minutes to conclude today's session, the 5th session of this second day of the seminar. I'll start by saying that Pakistan and Polish relations have always been friendly, positive and respectful. Developing national military capabilities is an indispensable component of any country, and so has Poland and Pakistan, which is successfully maintaining requisite capabilities to defend the country and meet allied commitments. Similarly, like any country in the Committee of Nations, well-equipped and trained armed forces are graded as a vital tool for pursuing foreign policy goals. Pakistan and Poland face same kind of strategic challenges. Borders on our north and east are affected by an expansionist state, of course, namely the India, while Russia's area of Kaliningrad in Poland northeast pose same kind of challenges to them as well. Thus, we both need to learn from our threat environment, which is a kind of resemblance so as to generate out-of-the-box solutions to the security challenges. We need to mutually devise a system of maintaining viable forces structure, which is to ensure that forces stand ready to enact security policies and respond to any impromptu situations. Both Poland and Pakistan need to maintain proportionate and economically maintainable forces, your answer, maintainable forces in size and structure. While doing so, both countries have to keep an eye on arms race for which they should resist and avoid bleeding through instead of development. Poland is graded at the moment the 3rd country in the world, which is the most suitable country for any foreign direct investment. We need to learn mutually as to how can we benefit out of this grading in the world arena. Most importantly, to my understanding, we need to come out of the geostrategic rhetoric. We need to come out of the geostrategic rhetoric and adopt geoeconomics as pivot to our survival. This holds good mostly for Pakistan. Polish and Pakistani defense industries are sufficient enough to meet their respective indigenous defense requirements. So by enhancing the mutual cooperation under the rubrics of Wassenaar arrangement, we need to establish military-to-military contacts so as to plug the gaps of resources to the looming threats. And before I finish, let me share 3 suggestions with my Polish friends. The first one is to regularly hold joint exercises between Air Force, Navy and Army. Secondly, the prospects of Polish Armed Forces delegation participating in Pakistan's National Defense Day parade. And last but not the least, in the end, I would urge the Polish government to help Pakistan in getting membership of the export control cartels, which include the Missile Technology Control Regime, Wassenaar Arrangement, Australia Group, and not least, but the Nuclear Supply Group. The Indians are the member of 3 out of 4 export control cartels, less Nuclear Supply Group. That's why they are much ahead of us. Today, the Indians are looking for indigenous production and supplies of military equipment to the world. Till the time we are not member of the Wassenaar arrangement, perhaps if Polish government wants to trade with us in terms of the conventional weapons, they'll have many restrictions. So being their member, they should help Pakistan in getting into Wassenaar so that the Poland and Pakistan military relations can further strengthen. With this we end, and again join me together to thank my Polish friends and the Pakistani experts who have enlightened us on a very, very important topic, a topic very close to our heart. Thank you very much, sir. So for the administrative announcement, administration.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. I would like to request Professor Dr. Alaikum, Department of International Relations, Federal University, please come upon stage and present to the special chair. Dr. Ahmed, please come. Dr. Zahid himself, sir, please. Dr. Robert, sir, please. Dr. Robert. Professor Ahmed, sir, please. Professor Ahmed, please. Thank you. Now I request Professor Dr. Ahmed Said Minhaj. Thank you so much, everyone. Now it's time to lunch. You are requested to please come back till 2 p.m. Thank you.